KOSDAQ plus 14.10%. Ownership transfer confirmed. Now, what you're seeing on the screen, it's not just a simple market rebound. This is a massive strategic transfer of ownership in the core AI supply chain, moving from liquidated retail leverage straight into the hands of institutional equity. We're going to break down exactly how it went down and, more importantly, what it means for the U.S. Open. So yeah, you're looking at a sea of green, a truly historic day for the crane market. But that big percentage gain, that's just the headline. The real story, the actual signal, is about who was buying and who was forced to sell. Make no mistake, this wasn't a recovery. It was a fundamental restructuring of the market. And this number, plus 14.1%, that's the aftershock. The earthquake that caused it actually hit 24 hours earlier with a massive plunge. So this isn't just data. It's the final receipt for a huge forced change in who now owns the most critical technology assets in the region. All right, so let's dig in. The ownership transfer. How did this actually happen? You have to understand the mechanism here because it's the key that unlocks the opportunity when the U.S. markets come online. You see, to get today's explosion, you first have to understand yesterday's collapse. That plunge wasn't about fundamentals. It wasn't because these companies suddenly became less valuable. No, it was purely mechanical, a chain reaction. Think of it like dominoes. Leveraged traders got hit with margin calls, which forced them to sell at any price, which drove prices down even more, triggering the next wave of forced selling. And all of that forced selling creates what we call a liquidity vacuum. It's like a flash fire sale. 90% off everything, but the sale only lasts for a few minutes. Well, this creates the perfect, almost manufactured opportunity for buyers with cash on hand, the strategic capital, to swoop right in and absorb these critical assets for cents on the dollar. So let's be absolutely crystal clear about what this is showing us. This was not the market recovering. It was a wealth transfer. A direct pipeline opened up from what we call weak hands, traders operating on debt, to strong hands, the ones with the equity to capitalize on the chaos. And if you want the proof, well, the data doesn't lie. Just look at the foreign investor flows right here. On the left, you see institutions were dumping the KOSPI, the broad market. But on the right, they were surgically injecting over 800 billion won into the KOSDAQ, targeting very specific key supply chain nodes. This wasn't a blind buy the dip. It was a surgical strike. So where exactly did that capital strike? If we follow the money, we can pinpoint the real signal, the canary in the coal mine for the entire global tech sector. This right here, this is a concept I call qualitative decoupling. On the left, you've got the general index. That's just noise. But on the right, that's the signal. An explosive breakout in a critical node of the AI supply chain. That's the alpha signal, the one most people miss because they're just watching the headlines. And check out where that smart money landed. Hyundai Semiconductor, SK Hynix. They weren't buying junk. They were strategically acquiring ownership of irreplaceable bottlenecks in the global AI hardware supply chain. These are the key supply chain nodes that have a true physical moat. These are the assets where the signal well and truly activated. Now, this strategy, it's not about day trading. This is about acquiring fortress assets, companies that are almost impossible to compete against. Think about it like this. In the global AI gold rush, these companies don't just sell the shovels. They own the only mountain pass that gets you to the gold field. You have to go through them. So their value isn't based on today's price. It's based on their long-term strategic control over the entire supply chain. That's the thesis. Okay, so what does all this mean for us? We're going to translate this Asian signal into an actionable battle plan for the U.S. Open. This is the pivot from analysis to action. Listen up. The signal has been sent. The institutions have already front-run the U.S. hardware rally. They acquired the supply chain 12 hours ago. The capital is in position. This is the only rule that matters for the next session. Do not trade the headline. Trade the supply chain. Now, the signal is strong, but we need a trigger. U.S. Weekly initial jobless claims. A number at or above consensus confirms cooling. It validates our entire thesis. That is the green light. Watch these levels. NASDAQ 100 futures. Entry is above 25,300, only if the data confirms cooling. Your exit is a support failure below 24,700. The entire setup is invalidated if we break 24,500. Confirm the signal. Watch pre-market volume on Nvidia, AMAT, and Lam Research. Heavy volume confirms the structural condition. Invalidated volume contradicts price. Remember, cash is a position. Do not force this trade.
If conditions are met, execute with precision. Log the result at 0630 Eastern. No exceptions.
If you want the Asia close before New York opens, you need to be here. Subscribe.